Hello and welcome to Northern Nightmares, your home for scary stories and folklore here in Canada. I'm your host Andrew, and today we're heading to a beautiful lakeshore in Manitoba, where a man named Stefan Michalak reportedly seen a UFO on May 20th, 1967. This story became the best documented event in Canada. Even almost 60 years later, this story would still be surrounded with mystery of what happened that day. This would be known as the Falcon Lake UFO incident. For as long as humans have been able to look up and wonder what was beyond our world, objects have appeared in the skies and shaped our views on the matter throughout history. In the modern era, these objects have been known as UFOs. For nearly 3/4 of a century, we've debated if these UFOs are man-made, illusions, or aliens. Are we being visited by other worlds? It's the governments of various nations working on secret aircraft. As of 2025, we have yet to receive a definite answer. However, one of these such events happened in our very own country, a bizarre and downright creepy tale that makes one wonder, what aren't we being told? Stefan Michalak was born and raised in Poland before moving to Canada with his wife and son in 1949 after serving with the US for a time during World War II. Michalak was employed by the Inland Cement Company as an industrial mechanic working in Regina, Saskatchewan for 6 years, before transferring to Winnipeg for another 2. In this time off, Michalak was an amateur geologist that would prospect at a location he had found himself at Falcon Lake that was known to have quartz and silver. Michalak usually would take a bus in the early morning, take nothing but his briefcase, gloves, goggles, and a hat, and as assumed, any other tools he used he left at the site, never afraid of anyone taking them as he never disclosed the exact location. It's never been stated why he never told anyone, maybe out of greed or just preferred the peace and quiet, but we may never know. Friday, May 19th, 1967, Stefan headed out for his usual prospecting venture. He checked into the Falcon Lake Motel that late evening, but it wasn't until the following day that he arrived at Falcon Lake to begin his work. I have as my main source today an official RCMP report that was taken only a few days after this event. I'll be using that info to describe the timeline of Stefan's account of what happened that Saturday. Also, for the record, some of the info has been redacted, but I do believe it's just personal information of Michalak, and I don't believe it's anything top secret. Suddenly in the early afternoon, Michalak had been working away when he heard a flock of geese suddenly take flight, in which seemed to him in a panic to get away from the area. As he looked up in their direction, he noticed 2 dish-shaped objects floating in the sky with a red glow irradiating off them. One of these objects began to descend. Michalak had noticed the shape had become round and seemed to be rotating. The craft had landed in front of Michalak, describing it as gray, red color with a golden glow and smelled of sulfur. A hatch was slightly open, and muffled voices could be heard inside. Michalak proceeded to walk closer and try to communicate with this visitor. He tried first in English, then a few common phrases in other languages. However, no response was heard. It was as whoever was inside kept quiet the moment he started to speak. As Michalak reached out to touch the craft, another vent opened, exposing what he describes as an exhaust port, released a gas flame of some sort, burning Stefan's gloves and shirt, and also leaving a distinct burn marks on his chest. These burns were round in a grid-like formation, 4 dots wide and 5 dots high. His outer shirt had been burned off almost completely away, and having been taken off at the time, his undershirt had the grid formation burned into it. Also, he had his grinder goggles on at the time, which were thankfully protected his eyes. Michalak fled the scene in fear, eventually stumbling out of the woods towards the Trans-Canada Highway 1, half a mile west of the beach entrance, managing to flag down a squad car sometime around 3 p.m. Constable Solaski of the Falcon Beach Highway Patrol stated Stefan told him about the 2 spacecraft he had just witnessed and his encounter with them, thinking at first he may have been drunk, as his eyes were red and he was acting irrational, and any time Solaski would get any closer to Michalak, he would back away, seemingly uncooperative. However, no smell of alcohol was present, and as for Michalak keeping his distance, he later described he was afraid that he was contaminated with radiation and didn't want to pass it on to the officer. After taking his statement, Michalak returned home to Winnipeg to his family and remained there isolating himself from everyone until Tuesday, May 23rd, in which he would have a few guests that very morning. Corporal C.J. Davis and Constable Zacharias were tasked to investigate this incident further, arriving at Michalak's home on Tuesday, May 23rd at 10:30 a.m. that morning. However, when they arrived, Michalak was accompanied by his wife Marie, 19-year-old son Stan, and a man named J.B. Thompson, a representative of the Aerial Phenomenal Research Organization, or APRO for short, which was located from the United States. Mr. Thompson remained at the Michalak residence for a brief time, but then left for both RCMP to continue with their inquiry. The inquiry lasted about 2 hours. Michalak had stated in that time that he was physically uncomfortable since Saturday and hasn't been able to eat anything. The clothing he wore that day was shown to both officers, plus the burn marks on his chest as well. Both officers state Michalak was definitely burned by something that day, and also his clothing smelled of burning electrical wiring. As the week proceeded, the RCMP had contacted Selkirk Mental Hospital, Brandon Mental Hospital, and the Winnipeg Psychiatric Center to determine if Michalak had any known history of mental illness. All results came back negative. His employer, Inland Cement, was also contacted. The company had stated Michalak was mentally stable and of sound mind. The Manitoba Cancer Research Clinic examined both Michalak and his shirt for radioactivity, both coming back negative. The shirt remained in possession at the clinic at the time, and it is unknown what proceeded with it. As for the gloves Michalak had worn on Saturday, it was discovered one of them went missing shortly after Mr. Thompson of APRO had left the Michalak residence, assuming he had taken it with him. The glove was never recovered, and it is unknown of what happened with it. Aerial photos were done by helicopter of the site, but nothing inclusive came from it. However, a spot where Michalak claimed the craft had landed, burn marks were found on the ground and radiation was detected in the soil. However, it is argued that it could have been the cause of a natural radiated mineral buried around the dig site. Whatever happened on that day, Michalak believes it was an alien, but of man-made design. He stated he was never one to believe in aliens and scoffed at the notion. Over the years, Michalak had said he hated going public with his story as it caused nothing but harassment and hate from people. Many argued that the whole thing was a hoax and Michalak was made the whole story up to keep people away from the prospecting site. And this is the end of the information I've gathered from the police report. In the present time, Chris Rakowski, a research coordinator of the Winnipeg Ufology Center, investigated Michalak's story. He stated with so many layers to this event that if it was a hoax, it's so in-depth to be the best UFO hoax on record. Chris has also stated that in Canada, approximately 1,200 UFOs are reported each year. However, about 3 to 5% cannot be explained. I wonder if such organizations like Project Blue Book investigated this story at the time. If you're unfamiliar with Project Blue Book, they ran a secretive UFO department in the United States government from 1952 to 1969, and some say that the Roswell event in 1947 was the foundational case that started the project. One must wonder too if APRO had ties to Project Blue Book. Even though it's a private, civilian organization, I personally believe the two may very well be secretly connected, but to discuss Project Blue Book is to dive into a very deep rabbit hole. We may never know what Stefan had allegedly seen that day, even after his passing in 1999. Stan Michalak, his son, had written a book closing the story of his father's event. Regardless of what others say, Stan believes that his father had seen something that day and continues to believe today. In 2018, the Royal Canadian Mint made a coin for this story as well, commemorating the famous story in an oval shape depicting Michalak witnessing the UFO. As to the mystery of UFOs, are they government aircraft or something from beyond? We may never know, but with all the recent news and files slowly being released, I have hope we might yet get an answer. I believe most are just secretive aircraft, but to some of the events that have occurred throughout the years that are unexplainable, I believe we have been visited, and it's only a matter of time before we find out who they are and what they want. And that, my friends, is the story of Falcon Lake UFO incident. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll be looking to the skies to one day spot your own UFO. If you have any other stories you want me to cover, you can email me at northernnightmares@outlook.com and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. Also, on my Instagram page, I've posted a couple pictures that I gotten from the CBC article showing Michalak's burn marks and a drawn description of the craft. Next week, bundle up and don't forget your toque, because we're heading way up north for our next tale to a location one can compare the likes to Skinwalker Ranch. See you soon, and sweet dreams.